we're actually here at the Brakey campaign headquarters in Auburn, Maine. We're getting ready because we found that we're going to have a new neighbor in town. My opponent, Senator Angus King, his campaign office is opening just actually about a block away from us here in my state senate district here in Auburn, Maine. So we figure we're going to go over and welcome him to the neighborhood and also ask him a question, which is why won't he debate me? Why won't he agree to participate in the debate we have going on August 9th? You know, high school students here in Maine over a month ago put together a debate on issues around the Second Amendment and gun control. Because these are kids who are, scared about some of the things that they've seen happen in schools across America with some of the violent incidents that we've seen taking place. It's understandable why they would be scared and why they'd want to have a conversation about what are some solutions to address this. Now, there are three candidates in the race for U.S. Senate. Myself, Eric Brakey, the Republican, the Democrat, who's a Democratic socialist named Zach Ringelstein, and then there's also the fake independent from Maine, Angus King, who we all know is actually a Democrat and supported by the Democrat Washington, D.C. establishment. Now, Zach Ringelstein and myself have both agreed to be in this debate to talk with these kids and talk about solutions for how we can make our schools safer. But Angus King wouldn't confirm or deny whether he was going to join the debate. He strung these kids along for an entire month before, it's a week before the debate, and all of a sudden he says he's not going to be there. Now, certainly I'd understand if he had a scheduling conflict because, they scheduled it for a particular time and it just didn't work with his schedule. But they told him it was so important that he be there that they would schedule it for any time that worked for him. Any time that worked. They would work with his schedule. But he was not willing to find time to make it work. He said he's disappointed he's not going to be able to be there. But he's not disappointed. We all know why Angus King doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to debate. It's because he doesn't want to have to take a position on the issues. Angus King likes to go and meet privately with different groups. He told these high school students he would meet privately with them, but he wouldn't do a public debate. He would meet privately with them because, of course, he likes to go to one group, an anti-gun group, and tell them privately that he supports gun control. Then he likes to go to Second Amendment groups and tell them how much he supports the Second Amendment. He tries to be on both sides of the fence rather than taking an actual position. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what he says when he comes home and lies to us to our faces, because we can look at his voting record in Washington, D.C., and we can see that Angus King, while he tries to disguise himself as supporting the Second Amendment, I'm the only candidate in this race who supports the Second Amendment. I'm proud of the fact that in the state Senate I sponsored and passed constitutional carry, giving Maine people back our Second Amendment rights without the need for a government permission slip. While Angus King representing us in the United States Senate, has voted for the UN Small Arms Treaty, which would set up the infrastructure for a national gun registry. He has expressed support for limiting and banning certain firearm magazines of certain capacities, restricting our rights. He's received huge campaign contributions from Michael Bloomberg, the New York City billionaire who is always trying to take our Second Amendment rights away. The reason he supports Angus King is because he knows Angus King is going to work with the anti-gun agenda, and that's what he's been doing the last 6 years. So, Maine people, if we are ready to stand up for our Second Amendment, stand for our constitutional rights, and get Washington, D.C. to leave us alone, then we've got an opportunity to stand up and fight this November at the ballot box. Now, we're going to get ready to go head over and welcome Angus King to the neighborhood, say hello, be friendly neighbors. We're going to be friendly, but we're also going to ask him, hey Angus, why are you so chicken? Why won't you debate? Let's have a debate. The Maine people deserve it.
way out, not until we're very close to election day. Not giving people a lot of time to consider the options.
Well, we've already said yes to 1, 2, 3 debates.
All right. 3 dates. Well, we've been in the U.S. Senate for 6 years. It's not a lot of time to go on.
You only just started running, so.
What's that?
Voting record. He's got a voting record. And,
Yeah.
And he also, has been out there for 6 years. So
Well,
he only
absolutely.
just started running, so.
Well, absolutely. Well, we'll look forward to having a conversation. I hope to be able to have a conversation with him on the debate stage as much as possible.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Toby, hey, I appreciate it.
Good seeing you, Senator.
Appreciate the
Great
work you
seeing
guys are doing. Part of the democratic process, and just want to say welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
All right. Absolutely.
Where are you guys, anyways?
Where's our office?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, we're down in the plaza over near Tin Tin Buffet and Gippers, and so we're actually we're almost next door neighbors. Anyway, we figure we're so close, we come say hi.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right, good to see you, Toby.
You too.
To help you win in November, like, what's the best thing they can do?
Well, there's a couple of things. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. Hey, we're getting truck drivers for Brakey. All right. We're getting a lot of folks. Obviously we got a lot of folks who came out today on really short notice to express their support for debates in this U.S. Senate race. So I want to thank everyone who's out here today. We got supporters, young and old. I think the youngest supporter here we have is 9, and the oldest supporter here. Well, you're not supposed to ask people their age when they get to a certain point.
Right.
What's that? Oh wow!
The youngest
all right. 3 weeks old is the youngest supporter we have here, but we got supporters young and old. And look, this is really about the Maine people should have an opportunity to have debate, to know what the choices are on the ballot, and to really have an opportunity to hear and reflect on what Angus King's record actually has been these last 6 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you asked specifically what can people do to help, and I just spent the time thanking everyone who is helping.
That's perfect, though.
You can go to ericbrakey.com if you want to chip in any amount. I know that there's a number of folks. I hear there's kind of some folks putting something on for my birthday on August 8th. I don't know what that's all about. But certainly we're a grassroots funded campaign. You can always chip in, but there's always so many opportunities to volunteer. Get in touch with our team. And of course, the least you can do is right now, where if you're watching whatever Facebook live feed you're watching, you can go and you can click share, and you can get the message out to your friends and your family, because this is about fighting for Maine. Because for far too long, Washington, D.C. has been kicking Maine people around, telling us how to live, telling us how to spend the fruits of our labor. This campaign is about standing up for Maine people so we can make our own choices in our own lives and in our own state. That's what our Constitution promises. That's what the 10th Amendment promises. That we task Washington, D.C. with some very specific delegated powers, defending our country, setting our immigration policy, and a few other limited enumerated powers. But other things were supposed to be left to the states. We were supposed to be the laboratories of innovation. That's what our founding generation thought was going to work, and especially as our country has grown so big with so many hundreds of millions of people in this country, the idea that we're going to have one city in Washington, D.C. dishing out one-size-fits-all policies that are going to work equally well for California and Maine and every state in between, it just doesn't make sense. It's not working. It's driving us apart. And you know what? I don't care if a state like Vermont, for example, they've often wanted to do experiments with things like single-payer healthcare and government-run healthcare. And you know what? If Vermont wants to do that, fine. That's Vermont's right. They can do that. And you know what? I don't think that's going to work out. But you know what? When it doesn't work out, maybe we can all watch and learn something, and we'll have a lesson to learn for the future. But they want to do that, and we don't have to pay for it, fine. But in exchange, we should be able to experiment and establish our own policies in Maine, not have to take these one-size-fits-all mandates from the bureaucracy in Washington.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I thank you for standing up and even doing something so bold as this today.
We're just welcoming our neighbors to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen Senator King yet. I don't know if he's here or not. They wouldn't.
Maybe he's hiding in the back.
Maybe he's hiding inside. I don't know. He's welcome if he's watching on Facebook Live. He's welcome to come out and say hello. I just want him to know we're very friendly out here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Senator Eric Brakey. I thank you very much for everything you're doing and putting on something like this today, where you come over and be so gracious to your competitor.
Absolutely.
It really means a lot.
Hey, look. You know what? Regardless of all the issues that there's certainly plenty of issues to disagree on, but there's never any reason. We never have to get mean or nasty. We can challenge people. We can stand up and we can be firm on the issues, but we never have to be mean or nasty. We can always do it respectfully, but know that when we're standing for what's right, we're standing for things that are important.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
What would your top 3 be, Senator, if we were going to, being that he's not here to debate, debate before the crowd, what's your top 3 issues you want to see tackled?
Well, now that since Angus King has kind of pulled out of the debate on the Second Amendment, that makes me really want to debate the Second Amendment. I mean, obviously, I have a very established record on that, and so does Angus King. I've been supportive of the Second Amendment, and Angus King is afraid to talk about the Second Amendment. But of course, he's voted to erode our Second Amendment rights in Washington, D.C. Through many different issues. As I've mentioned before, he voted for the UN Small Arms Treaty, which would set up the infrastructure for a national gun registry. He's advocated for banning certain firearm magazines above a certain number. So that's one thing I'd like to talk about. Hey,
how's it going?
Going well. Well, thank you very much. I would love a water. Thank you, Toby. It is a hot day. We didn't bring any water for you guys, but thank you.
That's all right.
We're running a handshake though.
I got it.
There you go.
I appreciate it, Toby. We were just talking about being neighborly, and I really appreciate that.
No problem. Hey.
One good turn deserves another. I appreciate it. Good to see you, Toby.
No problem. Same here.
Absolutely. So definitely would love to debate and talk about the Second Amendment. Would also like to talk about.
Is that water funded by the special interest in DC?
I don't know. It's Poland Spring. I like
Well, at
Poland
least it's
Spring.
going to a Maine company and not some out of state.
Anyway, but
David, that got quite a few laughs. I'm just saying.
but so I'd like to talk about Angus King's record on corporate welfare. You know, this is something I think that is especially frustrating here in Maine. You know, Maine, we are one of the highest taxed and lowest paid states. We are some of the highest taxed and lowest paid people in America here in Maine. And yet we see more and more Washington, D.C. has become the richest, the absolute richest region in America, with the special interests lining up at the taxpayer trough. The 5 richest counties in America are all suburbs of Washington, D.C. And how did that happen? How did that happen when Washington, D.C. produces nothing of value? They're not known for manufacturing. They're not known for agriculture. How are you doing today? Good to see you. They're not known for manufacturing. They're not known for agriculture. They're not known for finance. They're not known in Washington, D.C. for producing anything of value, and yet they become the richest region in America. How does that happen? It happens because of politicians like Angus King voting to take away our money, voting to steal from our paychecks with taxes, from our future with debt, from the very value of our savings and our retirement. Every time he allows the Federal Reserve to print new money out of thin air, and it goes on with reckless abandon. By the way, audit the Fed, a bill that I support, I think is crucially important. The Federal Reserve, the central bank that is responsible for printing all the dollars in America, for creating new money out of thin air, trillions and trillions of dollars. For years, people have been demanding accountability there and asking for a simple audit. You know what? Every single member of the Maine congressional delegation has supported calls for an audit of the Federal Reserve. Shelley Pingree supports audit the Fed. Bruce Poliquin supports audit the Fed. Susan Collins supports audit the Fed. Mike Michaud, when he was in Congress, supported audit the Fed. But you know who has consistently opposed an audit of the Federal Reserve? Angus King. You know, and it's the Federal Reserve that prints all this money and hands it out to the special interests. It is those who are well connected in Washington, D.C. who get access to this while what we work to earn is diminished. So that's one thing I'd like to talk about. He's also supported corporate welfare through the renewal of the Export-Import Bank. The Export-Import Bank, which takes hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars and makes taxpayer finance loans to giant mega corporations on the promise that they're going to create jobs. Now, of course, these huge loans go to the well-connected. It doesn't go to regular mom and pop businesses. It doesn't go to any of us. No, we're stuck paying for these bills. And the reason that they go to government for these loans, they go to the taxpayers for these loans, is because they are getting these loans at artificially low rates that the private banks won't give because they're too risky. And so that's something that we need to stand against. We need to stand against corporate welfare, and we need to stand for Maine people getting to keep the fruits of our own labor and making our own decisions on what to do with that. So I talked about the Second Amendment. I talked about corporate welfare. Another thing I'd very much like to talk about, I'd like to talk about our foreign policy. You know, we have been at war in Afghanistan now for 17 years. You know, I'll tell you how old I was when we went to war in Afghanistan. I was in middle school when we went to war in Afghanistan. I have watched my peers, first as my older peers, go off to fight in this war. Then I watched peers my own age go off to fight in this war. Now I watch kids who were in diapers when we first went off to Afghanistan, go off to fight in this war. You know, Osama bin Laden is dead. The people who planned and orchestrated 9/11 are all dead. It's time to declare victory and come home. Instead, we are sending our sons and daughters into this country off to fight in these foreign conflicts with a fuzzy mission that does not do respect and honor to what they signed up for. Our men and women in military uniform signed up to defend America, to defend our freedoms, to defend our Constitution. And yet, while our own border is being penetrated here in America, we have sent them off to Afghanistan to defend the borders over there. It doesn't make sense. You know, we have spent trillions and trillions of dollars on these wars, and we have lost so many lives. And it's time to really question this. And now Angus King, on top of the war in Afghanistan, on top of doing nothing to bring our soldiers home, and doing nothing to declare victory and come home, and give our soldiers the respite they deserve, he supported going into Libya, Hillary Clinton's war in Libya, which, as we have seen the reckless decision of that led to the destabilization of the region, the rise of ISIS, the murder of our ambassador in Benghazi and our Marines in Benghazi, and now the emergence of open-air slave markets in Libya. This was Hillary Clinton's war that Angus King supported. In fact, it was one of the reasons that Angus King endorsed Hillary Clinton for president, citing her foreign policy experience and her wisdom on foreign policy. The same foreign policy experience and wisdom that led us into Libya, and has led to, again, the murder of our ambassador and our Marines, the rise of ISIS, and also the emergence of open-air slave markets. So I think that Angus King has a lot to answer for these last 6 years that he's been in office, and I'm hoping that eventually he'll agree to some debates, and we'll do that. You know, he says, well, he'll do debates like in the few weeks before the election. But you know what? I think we're within 100 days of the election now. It's time for people to have an opportunity to start considering their options. And you know, I will say, it's great to see Steve Collins here from the Sun Journal. Steve Collins is one of the few reporters in the media, who's actually been covering this race a little bit, which I appreciate. But you know what? So much of the Maine media has simply been ignoring this race. They've been treating this race like it's a coronation, not an election. That Angus King is the king of Maine, and we should just accept that for who it is, and the fact that the people get to have a vote on this is just a formality. But you know what? It's not a formality. This is what our process is. And we have an opportunity to stand up and make a difference this November. We have an opportunity to stand up for our Constitution, for our liberties, and to fight for Maine. That's what this campaign is all about. That's what we're fighting for. That's what everyone here is fighting for. And I really appreciate everyone out here today. And so maybe if we're here long enough, Angus King will come out and say hi. I will say thank you. Of course, I said thank you. They did bring us out some nice Poland Spring water. Poland Spring is business in my district, and I appreciate that. So hello, how are you doing? Oh, they're not saying hi, but we're all being very friendly, and and I will say this, some of their staff has been very friendly too. I'm not here to say that they're bad people or anything. Obviously they have a difference of opinion, but all we want is Angus King to debate. I think the Maine people deserve that.
I agree.
Senator, if I may, just I asked you for your top three. I noticed that you didn't. I know you got a lot on your mind today. You didn't mention open borders. And your office is just across the Androscoggin River,
Yeah.
and the city of Lewiston's got, I think the last statistics is about 7,000 Somalis. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but the cost.
Good to see you.
Not to get specific with the nationality or anything, but the cost of illegal immigration, according to the Federation of American Immigration Reform, to Maine taxpayers is roughly $47 million a year. What would you say to Senator Angus King about the progressive policy of open borders?
You know, it's just obvious that you can't have open borders in a welfare state. You know, the economist Milton Friedman pointed that out, and he's absolutely right. And yet, so many folks like Angus King, they seem to want to have both. They want to grow the welfare state and let anyone and everyone come here and sign up for welfare benefits the first day that they arrive. Well, this is part of a deliberate strategy. It's part of a deliberate strategy because the far left has been trying to sell socialism in America for generations, and the American people keep saying no. And so they've turned around and they said, okay, well, the new strategy is to just import new voters here. That's their strategy to have socialism win in America, is to import new voters. So look, we need to have strong borders. We need to enforce those borders, and we can have immigration. We can have legal immigration. We should have opportunities for that. You know, this is the land of immigrants. But what we can't have is, we cannot have a system where anyone in the world can come here and sign up for welfare benefits and be able to vote in our elections. That'd be very destabilizing. And it helps, and it bankrupts us. Now, one thing that Angus King said when he announced his re-election campaign, one of the things he said was that, hello, how are you doing today? Good to see you all. Hello. One of the things that Angus King said when he announced his re-election campaign is he wants to see more refugees coming to America, coming to Maine. And look, I think that, look, there are many refugees who are here already. We need to, you know, if they're here legally, we need to do, especially many of them have been here long enough that they've become citizens. It's hard enough to assimilate the folks who are here now. We need to focus on assimilating those folks, getting them, making sure they have opportunities to become economically empowered and to become active participants in our community and not dependent on welfare. We have a lot of work to do there. But he said one thing in particular that stuck out to me is he said he wanted more refugees to come here from Syria. Well, that just struck me as especially interesting because Angus King has voted for arming the Syrian rebels in Syria, allied with ISIS and Al-Qaeda, radical groups that have created the civil war in Syria and have created the refugee crisis in Syria. So if we want to have, if we want to address the refugee crisis in Syria, maybe we need to stop having politicians like Angus King use American taxpayer dollars to fund the groups in Syria that are creating the refugee crisis. And then we don't need to bring a whole bunch of people over here. They can stay and they can live in their own homes and they won't have to fear for their lives. So that's, but that's been a huge problem. That's been the Washington D.C. establishment that Angus King has been a part of, pushing for war in Syria and trying to, you know, this is one thing that's really crazy. And I know this is what's really crazy and really offensive to me. Is, you know, in this push to depose the government of Syria, Assad is a bad guy. I mean, he's a dictator. We can all acknowledge that. But in the push to do that, the politicians in Washington, D.C., like Angus King, have allied with some of the worst of the worst, with rebel groups allied with ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And as bad as Assad is, he protects the Christian community in Syria. He has been overall a stabilizing force in Syria. And as bad as he is, bad things that he's done, he's never attacked us. But you know who has attacked us? Al-Qaeda attacked us. So the idea that we would ally with groups allied with ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria, groups that actually have attacked us, in order to force regime change in Syria, the same kind of regime change that we have seen over and over again has failed in the Middle East. It failed in Iraq, it failed in Libya, and now Angus King is trying to do the exact same thing in Syria. That's irresponsible. It's grossly irresponsible, and it says that the politicians like Angus King have not learned the foreign policy lessons of the last 20 years. I'll tell you, my generation has learned those lessons because it has been folks in my generation, the millennial generation, who has been fighting these wars for the last 20 years. I can tell you so many people, close friends of mine, who went off to fight in these wars and who come back and changed. And you know what? They came back and they said, I don't know what we were fighting for over there. The mission is fuzzy. And you know what? One of the biggest problems that we have this idea that war is anything but hell. We have this idea that we can fight wars and they're going to be friendly wars. There are no friendly wars. If we go to war, we have to go full in, all out. We cannot tie our soldiers' hand behind their backs, and we need to understand war is hell. And it should be a last resort as a result. Instead, we deploy our soldiers all across the world. We commit them to wars with fuzzy missions, and we say, try to figure it out, and we're gonna have your hands tied behind your back the whole time. And you know, look, if we're gonna go to war, we gotta give our troops what they need. We gotta let them do the job. We gotta let them go in with overwhelming force, and then we have to bring them home. And that's not what we've been doing. So
I think it's interesting, with so many people pouring into his office, I really would have to believe that he'd be here today.
Yeah.
And especially with there
Hello,
being
how are y'all doing today?
a reporter.
Good to see you all.
A reporter here to cover something, so I'm assuming it's him moving into his own office, but I'm not shocked that he wouldn't come out.
There's a few people
and
arriving
address
anyway.
it. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Eric.
Absolutely.
We wish you the best.
Well, hey, everyone, thanks for those who are tuning in on Facebook Live. It's good speaking with you all.
Do you mind if I impose upon you for one more question?
Yeah, what's that?
The next, I think it's August 13th, the following Monday, the Portland City Council is going to be meeting to discuss voting for non-citizens.
Yeah.
What do you presume Senator King's position is, and what is yours?
Well, I'll be surprised if Senator King will take a position, because I don't think he likes to take positions. I think he likes to go to people and tell them exactly what they want to hear. So I'm sure if he had the opportunity, he would go tell the folks that support it that he's 100% supportive of it. And if he go privately talk with the folks who oppose it and tell them he opposes it. But you know what? I think it is so crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy that you have folks on kind of one hand who say that they want that they're concerned about the interference from outside countries in our elections, and yet they want to allow non-citizens from other countries to vote in our elections. It's like, it makes no sense. How can you say both of those things with a straight face? And yet that's what so many have been saying. And Angus King certainly has been making a big deal about meddling in our elections. So I guess it is a good question. If he's really concerned about meddling in our election, perhaps he should take a position and come out in opposition to the effort in Portland to allow non-citizens from other countries to vote in our elections.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.